And we are live. Hey guys, it's Ruben from Dub. We're on the podcast here with Amir. And Amir is the founder and CEO of CloudTask. And there's a tremendous story here and a tremendous journey that Amir has gone through, which is taking his company to now what is a $5 million a year business. And that's a recurring revenue. That's the sweetest type of revenue. So Amir, let's get right into it, man. What was the path? What were your humble beginnings? And then what was the journey to get you to where you are now?
Ruben, thanks for having me on here.
Yeah.
Where do I begin? I think the beginning of this story just started off with a true pain point as being an entrepreneur and just having troubles with my own small businesses when it came to hiring and managing teams. And I just kind of wanted there to be a better way to go to market without having to recruit, train, coach, fire, pay, and focus on my product. So with that in mind, I thought there was an opportunity for CloudTask to help technology companies and SaaS companies and BPO in general, which has been around for a long time. It was only accessible to the enterprise, where AT&Ts and big banks would hire 500, 1,000 people at a time. So there wasn't anything really available for SMBs, right? And that was kind of the idea behind CloudTask. And then, we had a team in Manila and the Philippines to start, but me and my co-founder, Alon Murikin, went and visited the beautiful city of Medellin, Colombia, and we fell in love and decided that it was an opportunity for us to bring technology and software sales and customer success and support to a nearshore area, and we moved 6 months later to Colombia. And the beginnings were like most companies. We worked from our apartment, but it was a very big apartment, right? And we had a team that was a team that believed in us. Some people from Bogota would actually move from Bogota to Medellin, and we were able to just start growing from a small team into what we are now, from 2 to 3 people to 210 plus and growing, which has been really awesome.
Now, what I love about the way that you kind of explain that paradigm shift of this idea that traditionally, historically, that enterprise companies could activate a sales department, a customer support team. They could say, we need 500 people. Click. Here's a check. Let's go. Let's activate that. I mean, that is the essence of instant scale. And historically speaking, the only way that could happen, to your point, is that if a company can just basically have the money to pay for that. And I think that the problem with that is that small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they didn't have the same opportunity to activate that type of scaled growth. And
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know how you unlocked that and how you cracked that code, and what was really the friction and the problem that existed beforehand.
Well, I'm like, to be honest with you, a lot of these organizations I later found out existed, and nobody just knows their names, right? Like there's and these are some of my competitors, but I consider them colleagues. They've been doing it for 30 years. Like a company like MarketStar, MarketSource, they're doing north of $250 million to $2 billion in sales. They've just been powering humongous companies for 30 years. And when they power those companies, they're not MarketStar, MarketSource. They're Ford, they're Bank of America. They're different organizations. So they weren't really getting that exposure. And it's like this niche of enterprise companies that nobody's just talking about it. And then everybody below that is like, no, you can't. My product's too complicated. And the bigger companies are like, you know what? I'm going to hire 5 of you and put you against each other. I got an internal team. I got an external team. I got 5 external teams. We don't care. We just care about the numbers, the quality, and the customer experience. So there was just that gap that I didn't even know. I knew there was a problem that I wanted to fix. And then I had more market confirmation. I was like, oh, these guys exist. Oh, we can actually get that big, right? And then, because a lot of us don't know about the whole BPO world, but it's not, outsourcing and BPO is not, we think of India and the Philippines, but it's America. There's probably 2,000 onshore facilities, right? Right in your neighborhood that nobody knows about because they're just powering big companies. And A lot of people got their humble roots in those companies, and it's just not a flashy industry, right? It's not. They're not out of the Y Combinator. They're not. They're not. You know, they don't have the. They don't have the $1 billion valuations while losing billions of dollars, right? That's America, right? We know the companies that are publicly traded and losing money, right? But these profitable BPOs nobody talked about, and yeah, it was a big aha moment, because at first it was just building something that I thought can help a leader like myself, a leader like yourself, and then realizing that, hey, technology is also really transforming the way we work, and it's transforming the workplace. And also, unfortunately, what's happening with COVID, because it's an unfortunate event, also kind of sped a lot of stuff up where people now don't have a choice, and they can be like, all right, well, you can get it done remotely, right? Because a lot of businesses were just on premise. That was just their DNA.
That makes sense. Now, I think when an enterprise comes to, let's say, you guys, they might have a strategy in play. They might have a big problem that they're trying to solve, right? They have their customer service is broken. It takes 30 minutes for a customer rep to answer a phone call on average. They have 100,000 leads that have never been touched, and they need to activate a sales department.
Mm-hmm.
They might not need a strategy. They might need resources. They might need people, right? Now, what happens when a company comes to you that's smaller in nature, that hasn't gotten to that scale moment, that maybe isn't suffering from an overload problem or an immediate lack of resources problem, but rather has an innate desire to grow and to scale? Amir, help us scale. Amir, help us to go from this level to this level from a recurring revenue standpoint.
Yeah.
How do you come to the table with resources and with strategy?
That's a good question. So just to be transparent, the part of you cut out, I think my computer I pushed my computer to the limit. So it's not your fault.
Yeah.
But I could probably get what you were saying.
My question is simple. When a company that hasn't necessarily done scale yet comes to you,
yeah,
and they want strategy and resources, how do you provide that?
So believe it or not, I actually partner with multiple sales consultancies and multiple sales leaders. Some of them are actually who you would think are my competitors, but they're really not. They're my colleagues. And I bring on top talent, authors of books, people that you would know that I'm not going to name drop here, because I also grow my company the same way I believe that another person should grow the company, right? If you're ready to come to work, it doesn't matter if you're W-2, 1099, or through a third party. If you get it done, you get it done. So I bring in top talent from around the world with specific experience that I have. Some of them are permanent residents. Some of them are on call with their specialty, and I'll bring them in if I don't have the talent in-house. Oftentimes I do, right? Like we work in VoIP a lot, and I have a great sales manager who's been in VoIP and call service for 10 years, right? He's managing X amount of bandwidth, right? As we grow that area, I might bring in someone else. So we basically, bring in top consultants as part of the managed service, and that's part of the blended rate, right? When people hire a BPO like CloudTask or like a competitor or colleague, they're not just paying for a rep, they're paying for management, strategy, quality assurance, coaching, training, hiring, firing. That's our value prop, right? So leaders, VPs of sales, director of sales can focus on the KPIs they want without the micro management. They're like, this is our new product, right? We have a freemium offering, we have a compelling event, and we need to get some market share. And then we bring in experts, whether or not we have it or in-house, and we're just always growing, so we're always hiring.
It's interesting because your model is so relevant for the era that we're in right now, because historically people are like, we don't want to outsource, and we don't want to have some virtual connection now, and all those barriers have been broken now.
Yeah.
So what is it like for you? I mean, this is just from my perspective, but what is it like to be in a situation now where outsourcing and virtual and being connected digitally is just the new norm? I mean, have you seen like a spike in your business and demand? And
yeah, so immediately 72 hours, we lost about 30% of our current revenue, and the companies that we were very, I would say that we were very not cutthroat, right? Some of them were like just signed contracts and they were selling to schools, and they were like, hey, like this happened, and like we had to do the right thing and let them out, right? And as a leader, it was tough because I wanted to do the right thing. I needed to protect my employees. I held on to every employee. We didn't let anybody go, and it was very disheartening. And I posted about this on CloudTask, seeing companies that had hundreds of millions of dollars on hand fire people. I was shocked, right? Because we bootstrapped at $250,000, and I didn't fire anybody. We fought hard. Me and the sales team. I love sales development. I was just reaching out to people, being helpful. And our sales team had the best month ever in, I think, May. And we have since then gone from 170 to 210, and we're hiring like crazy. So we've seen a lot of growth. And a lot of our partners, who are my colleagues, who I'm friends with in the industry, are also seeing that growth as well. So it's a lot of growth has happened, but there's a lot of still uncertainty about just which markets are growing, which are not, right? So people still need to get revenue, but at the same time, there's no data on like how pipelines will close 3 months, 4 months out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's been fortunate. It's been a positive for us. I think from a business standpoint, not personally, we're all locked in, right? And nobody likes what's happening. But yeah, it's been a growth trigger, definitely. And we are very lucky to be on target for our initial forecast. It was not adjusted.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people have mental blocks. I want to kind of pivot the convo a little bit. People suffer. I've suffered from this, where you have a glass ceiling, right? And that glass ceiling is not. We might initially think it's some sort of an excuse. I don't have X. I don't have Y. I need element of P. But oftentimes we start to realize that it's in our mind. Our limit is in our mind, right? So, did you figure something out in your career, in your life, at some point to say, you know what, I can bootstrap a company. I can grow it without, massive amounts of external capital. I can take risk. I can literally pick up and go and move to a developing nation, which is, I'm sure, paradise, by the way, and do so in a way where you have fun in the whole process. What do you know that we don't know? What's the unlock? Guide us here, please, Amir.
Yeah. So I think I'm very competitive with my older brothers. They don't know that the competition's on, but they were just really, really good guys. I have 3 older brothers who were super successful, modest, smart, right? So I was like, hey man, like these are my brothers. I have to be great, right? And one of my brothers, Avi in particular, he had an early exit at 26, and he moved to Tel Aviv for like 3 years, and he was traveling the world. And he'd be the brother who'd like fly me to Rio, right? Like I'd be sad at 26 as I broke up with a girl, and he'd be like, let's go to Brazil, right? He was a little early because that was a time where like you couldn't work remote, right? And I think he paved the way for me to then realize that like, hey, that's an awesome lifestyle. It expands your mind, it expands your world. Fortunately, it also parlayed into the fact that like now you can actually not be a backpacker, and instead of being in Thailand, you could be like in a mansion if you could afford, what you can afford in Miami, and running an organization, right? Like right now I have 210 employees, and like I've never been more connected to my employees. I'm slacking them till 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And like they're on lockdown, so they have nothing better to do. But it goes to show you, right, what can be done.
Now the lifestyle that you're living it's a YouTube channel, okay?
Yeah.
It's a YouTube. You're traveling around the world. All right. It sounds like
people, and my friend Justin Michael, who's also a well-known guy on LinkedIn and sales leader. He's always, whenever he's in San Francisco, he sees me. So I think I have more friends in San Francisco, and I'm probably more social in the scene than most guys in tech in San Fran, which is ironic. But yeah, we've been around, and I saw you and your team at Inbound. You guys got me into your product as well. So
yeah, that's. I'm glad you mentioned that. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun out there. In the good old days when we used to go to conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So, smaller businesses, smaller kind of companies. What's some best advice that you can give them to start to think about scale? Like, what are some immediate things that those types of companies should start to do to think about growth?
Well, I think the biggest opportunity when it comes to growth is the social game is huge, right? I think for
Okay.
us, a lot of people are hesitant to build LinkedIn profiles, to be active in Facebook groups, and it's a really big opportunity for leaders to scale that presence, make friendships, make connections, and act like a thought leader in your space, because if you own a company and you have an idea, you should be, right. Like as a CEO of a video technology and sales, like I am 100% positive that you are sending and testing the limits of video, right. And you could talk about that, right, to the world and being helpful. And then at the same time, when it comes to scale and your question about what to prepare scale, step on the gas when it comes to social. Um, Invest early into an LMS system and coaching and training. And I would say have your eye on happy clients, revenue, and happy employees, and step on the gas, right, and just be prepared to fail, because you're going to, right, and if you don't, you're not trying, basically.
Mm.
you know
And what happens when you work with a client and you fundamentally disagree with their, let's say, sales strategy, and that you think that the reason why they hired you was because they were suffering from some problem, but they might not realize that it's at a
Oh, that
deeper
happens
level.
all the time. It happens all the time, right?
And
Like
how
a
do you
lot
deal
of the
with that?
times, by just being straightforward,
Okay.
and like we have a client right now that's a well-funded, great company, right? And they want an ROI, right? And they're giving us the worst leads. They're giving us the 1 to 2 users that spend 90,000 a month. They want an ROI, and it's like, yeah, they're setting us up for failure, and it's okay, right? Like, unless they want to change it. So I jumped on it. I called the CEO and I'm like, look, man, like I didn't join your team to work for you for 6 months. Like, there's just we're not going to pat each other in the back and be like, hey, we got a 6 month agreement. Like, I have I have to tell you how I feel. I have to pull on every lever as I can. And they like that when you're straightforward, because most leaders are very straightforward, type A personalities, and they're direct. What we struggle with is that some of our management doesn't have 10 years of experience, right? They're great, they're learning fast, so they tend to shy from that. It's intimidating telling a VP of sales with 20 years of experience, you're leading me down the wrong path, right?
Mm.
So unfortunately, we have lost partnerships. I call them partnerships, right? Not customers, because of a poor strategy, or they led us in the wrong direction. But we see everything, right? Like, I have seen custom accounts that have crushed it. But account executives follow up once, we get fired. I have seen times where we had 11x ROI and our direct point of contact would leave the new company, we get fired. I see times where I have had a situation where somebody who hated us, somebody who literally was like the naysayer, like, get CloudTask out of here, right, moved to a new company and was like, this company already has another third-party outsourcing company, and she was like, you guys are so much better that I have to say something, and she turned into our biggest client and friend. So like, I've seen every client. I just being straightforward, I think, and honest, right, is the only hope you have. And then when you build an authority and you have data to back your confidence, it gets easier, right? Like, there's a reason why we're the number one in G2 crowd. There's a reason why we grew so fast. Like, there has to be something here, like, you hired us for a reason. The same way you believe in an employee, right? What people don't take into account is, like, they'll hire 500 sales reps and fire 500 and keep going. But once they hire one outsourced salesperson, I tried this before and it didn't work. And I have to tell them, I'm like, hey, you also hired 500 salespeople who fired. It's the same thing with a company. Every company is different timing, different management, right? And one of the biggest things that I hate is a leader who doesn't believe in it but gets convinced, because it's almost like voodoo magic, where like they'll set you off to fail because they're like, it's not going to work, but you know what? Fine, just try it, right? And it's like, if you're not going to pull for it to succeed, um, you're already washing your money down the drain. It's almost like a bad energy, right? Like, I got vetoed from my marketing team the other day about SEO. I was like, guys, we don't need to spend more money on SEO. And they're like, Amir, we do. Like, And I was like, you know what? Raise a hand who wants to do it, right? And I got beat, right? It was 3-1 against me, and I go, cool, it's approved. I wasn't crossing my hands and being like, this is gonna fail, right? I was like, I'm on board now. I'm gonna make sure this works, right? So I think I hope I didn't speak too fast and get all over the place, but I
No,
think
that
you
was
just
great,
have
man.
to be straightforward, talk about confidence, and be able to have that awkward conversation before the awkward conversation is, hey, we like you guys, you did a good job, but we're firing you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Ruben, I have to talk to you now before you fire me in 4 months. If we are on the same path, I'd fire myself. This is what I think we should do. What do you think? Right?
Right. Yeah. Those are
So
tough combos. Those are tough combos.
for certain people, they're easy for me. I
Yeah.
feed
That's
off
that's
that.
key.
Yeah, I took a
I
personality
think it's
test
ego.
for. Yeah.
I suspect that you are a master at managing and working with ego while still
I
mitigating your
only
own.
no my team. I upset my team because I took a personality test actually yesterday and I forgot the name of it, but it's like red is like very decisive, entrepreneurial, like, and then they measure you how you deal under pressure, and my personality gets more decisive under pressure. So
Ah,
I like rub my management team the wrong way. That's why I just hit the phones. I'm a sales guy. But I think that you listen, if you're given an opportunity and at the core you believe in what you're doing and you truly want to help somebody, you should be able to speak up, right? Because I don't think there's a single time that we as a company have taken someone's capital, not produced results, and high-fived each other. Like, that's not our goal. It doesn't feel good. Nobody likes it, right? Like, we're not like, yay, we just, got paid 200 grand and we failed on our goals. Like, that's a disappointment. So when you believe in what you're doing, it might seem abrasive, but in reality, I think you're doing your teammates, your partners a justice by having that awkward conversation and being direct.
nice. And then how do you scale up when you work with a smaller business? Let's just say.
We moved our minimums. Like our minimum was like one SDR. It was a nightmare, right? Like one SDR for startups, the other proven. I don't know how we did it. Like I look back and I'm like, oh my god. Our minimum is 4 full-time SDRs. Very rarely we do 2 people. It was an upside. But like you have to learn that we're not in the business of a dollar amount. We're in the business of what does somebody actually want to accomplish. If it takes 100 grand a month or 2 million a month to do it, you are doing a disjustice giving somebody the wrong product or service, right? So I think what we did is move our minimum up, move upstream, where find companies with product market fit already. If companies don't have product market fit, I opened up AmirReiter.com, which is like my consulting automation brand, where I'm like, Ruben, like you maybe want to hire 3 SDRs. Like, do you have a process? And you're like, no. Okay, cool. This is our agreement. I can't do that. Well, you're going to go to AmirReiter.com. We're going to incubate you with automation. We're going to get results. And then in 2 to 3 months, we'll talk about 2 to 3 people because I don't have any interest in working unless it's a proven model, right? Because it's either, do you have a scalable process? Yes or no, right? A or B. And I think that's what allowed us to help the right companies and start scaling up, just saying no as well.
And there's a lot of folks that say, you mentioned this kind of earlier, but there's a lot of folks that say we don't outsource, we keep it in house. I think there's less and less of those people because now obviously we see the benefits. Learning is very expensive, and time is the most valuable thing. Now, if a smaller company says, well, why would we hire CloudTask? Why would we hire Amir's firm? We're just going to do this ourselves. We're going to kind of maybe follow as well as we can whatever Amir is doing, and we're going to do it in-house. We're going to go get our hires, maybe overseas, maybe near shore, maybe in-house, and we're going to run with that. What are the common failures that you see in that situation? And how do you sometimes go and fix the problem after they come to you in 6 months?
Yeah, so the common failure is the concept of amplification, and it's some people lack the ability to understand that outsourcing something is not replacing, it's amplifying, right? Like if you love bringing in SDRs who last data-wise 1.3 years, they either want to become an AE and you promote them or not. Like why not just hire better AEs right off the bat and start focusing on your core competencies and moving up your training, right? Like people think it's either or, and they don't realize that their time can be applied elsewhere, right? Like If we're doing tier 1 or tier 2 customer support and we're doing hiring, firing, quality assurance, pipping, great. Do your tier 3, hire the best VPs, right? It's like an amplification. It's always sometimes seen as like either this or that. Billion-dollar companies don't see it like that, right? That's why they have 10. DoorDash, who I talked to, works with 76 outsourced providers, right? And they have internal, because their focus is the customer's experience and their metrics and their numbers. So just oftentimes I think people need to like wake up and realize that it's not either or; it's a combination of it all, right? It's like it's going to take a big effort to get humans to Mars, right? It's going to take 30 countries, scientists from around the world, right? Like they get it. You want to get a $1 billion company, it's going to take a lot to get there. Something that's shocking that people don't know about CloudTask, and I'll say it here, is I've hired my competitors to help me in sales. Why? Because I care about my customers getting better results, so I need to be profitable, and I need to hit my forecast. I need to reinvest in my platform, right? And if I believe in it, sales is a net sum. 2 plus 2 is 4, right? It's the same way that every employee has a different output. They have a different cost per meeting, cost per sale. A different vendor will too, right? So I had some of my competitors that are my colleagues that I said, you know what, take this vertical for me and go at it, see what you can do. And it's because me, I have very ambitious goals, right? We're 5 million this year. We're going to be 10 next, right? So I use my own concept and I tell people that, right? And for me, I care about who shows up and works, right? Like I don't necessarily see a W-2 in office as meaning you're my teammate, right? Like if me and you work together and you're consulting me for 5 hours a week, and every week you show up for those 5 hours and you give me 100%, our relationship could be 10 years. You're more internal than me, than some guy I paid full time, $90K a year, and then left me for a better offer at, Facebook, right? So it's like the days of people retiring with you, they're still there. Some will, but like it's just not what it used to be, right? But VCs and private equities, they're not leaders necessarily. They fund companies that are leaders, but they're not leaders in their modeling. So their models don't say outsource sales. Their models say go to New York, go to San Fran, hire the best of the best, right? I'm saying do the same thing, just pick the best of the best and the best, and have fewer top guys and have 3 guys leaving you and focus on keeping one for 20 years, Right. But there's my business is not perfect, right? Like confident about what I do, but like this is not a home run. Nothing's a home run, right? I think it's like we're all at the same time just working hard, and there's got to be a cultural fit. There's got to be the right person, the right employee, right? We had a rep on a new account, made a call as a VoIP company, and he got in touch with a company that's hiring, looking to replace their phone lines for a university, and it's 2,000 lines, right? And it's 2,000 times 30 recurring. It's huge, right? Sometimes it comes down to the effort of that person, right? It's like there's just a lot in play when it comes to sales, right? Hire us for support and success. That's easy. Sales is always going to be cutthroat. If you don't mind me asking you, like, how many SDRs have you hired and how many have you fired?
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I was just going to get into that. We have been 99% inbound, and that's a good thing, and it's a terrible thing. It's a good thing because it's just been an organic story for us. We built our entire technology around that. It's heavily referral based. But frankly, we're not satisfied. We want more growth. We want, we're speaking to institutional capital now. As the business has been bootstrapped. It's a very new business. We've been around for a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. We went through kind of a pivot process before that, before Dub is what it is, multiple years ago. And that's, of course, some of the failure stories. But now we're at that point where we feel like our tech is so scalable. I mean, we've built everything for scale. We've built and we've rebuilt. So I'm particularly interested to talk to you about this conversation, because the answer is the answer is effectively zero, and we're ready to activate that part of this business because I think we got something.
So let's talk about the term inbound and outbound, right? What do you consider inbound, right? Facebook, paid, right? Just coming to your website, self-serve, inbound,
Non-paid,
right?
self-serve, people hearing about us from friends, from colleagues, reading about a piece of content we put out there on the internet, a YouTube video,
SEO, right?
SEO, a
Would you
blog
consider
post.
paid Facebook, paid Google, to
It
be
is
outbound?
inbound. No, I think it is inbound. We've just been modest on it. We haven't done a massive amount of advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done our experiments and we've gone through the process. We, like I said, we're at that stage now where we're psyched.
I'd argue that it's outbound. Here's why, right?
Okay, so Facebook
Um,
ads is outbound.
Here's my argument,
Okay.
right? You get annoyed by a phone call or an email that you don't want, right? But a ad that you find on your feed, that's somehow not annoying, right? Because you know why it's not annoying? Because the power of the brand of Facebook and Google. But you are paying to put an ad in front of somebody's eyes. It is just considered acceptable, right?
Right.
It's acceptable that a company paid for that time and space, right? But if you didn't pay for it, it wouldn't be there, right? Same with paying a guy spinning a sign outside your store. So it's not that my argument's not that it's outbound. It's just that like it's sales, right? Whether you like it or not, right? And then let me ask you another question. Let's talk about the word outbound. I email you 10 times. Hey, Ruben, let's talk, blah, 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 blah. You don't want to talk to me, but you hit the site, my link, you hit CloudTask. And you go to the website and you download an ebook about how to build an outsourced sales team. Were you an outbound lead or were you an inbound lead?
I am a convert from an outbound situation to an inbound situation.
Oh yeah, you blocked me. Yeah, you just went to my site.
And when you go when your CMO goes or your head of data goes and pulls that report, that lead is not going to show up as.
That's what I was going to tell you. That's what I was going to get at. I have been fired. I know, because I don't. I'll call you. I called your CRO. That's how we met, right? I called him. I know for a fact that lots of our effort was taken by the marketing team because they just can't measure it and they just don't know, right?
Right.
But like you call me if you're not direct with me, if you're like, hey, how's your day going? I'm gonna be like, get to the point. If you're not like, because I know that anybody calling me wants to do business with me and I'm okay with that. So you could literally be like, hey, it's Ruben from Dub. I want you to be my customer and this is why. And I would like that call. Most people wouldn't, right? So most people don't do that style. I end up just hanging up because I'm super busy. But I'm more likely to check your website just to know, right? And then I'll go self-serve. So a lot of people will buy that way, right? But there hasn't been a mechanism to measure. I am working on measurement mechanisms to do that, and those are partnerships I have with companies like Partner Stack, where we create separate landing pages with unique links. So we could be like, that's the clicks, that's the leads, that's from our effort, right? So there's a solution to that I'm working on because I'm a strong believer in multi-touch attribution and separating the two. But I do believe that, because you said it, like if you listen to yourself as a CEO, I've been growing on inbound. Now I'm trying outbound. What about I've been growing on inbound? Outbound's going to give me more inbound. And then I'm going to get some home runs that are clearly outbound because John said, meet with me on the meeting, and then I measure it. But I'm also going to notice that there's going to be an increase in my inbound because I just know that the messages are going to resonate with people, and I'm confident that it's going to double my brand, right? So people don't think like that, and I think it's our jobs to educate people on that. And I'm doing it like for some big companies. I'm on WhatsApp, and if I showed you my screen, you could see like I'm messaging some big time CMOs. That's what I'm saying to them, right? Because like not everybody gives you the tools you need, right? Like they don't have that page, or they want a homegrown thing. Everybody wants a homegrown thing, right? I want to build my own tracking system. Do you really need to? There's 500 companies that did it for you, right? Like, and it's broken, But I think like I said before, I see it as revenue goals. Everybody's trying to fight over who did it. Is it my W-2? Is it my SDR? Is it my paid ads? They're all trying to fight over measurements and budgets, but like for me, I'm like, am I hitting revenue? Am I profitable? Are my customers happy? Are my employees happy? And that's kind of where like what I'm like very like I'm a hyper bull just focused on that. Cool. Like maybe in 5 years, I'll have some great data scientists breaking down my revenue streams for me with reports, and I could like be a little bit more precise. But if people started focusing more on their customers and their revenue goals, they would stop fucking firing and hiring people and churning and this and that. It's kind of funny. I laugh at some of the things I see. I'm like I've seen companies that had 30 million in revenue that are doing 3 million in revenue recurring, and they're like the most confident people in the world, and like you can't effing help me, you know, like what do you know, Amir? So I've seen just a lot of stuff out there, and it's given me confidence to help people more, and empowered us, you know. Hope I didn't get off track.
No, you're
See,
right on track.
After a call like this, I just want to start outbounding to create some inbound.
you are outbounding right now because there's plenty of people watching, and there's a lot of people that are interested in what you're saying, especially me right now. Question for you. I want to wrap this up in a minute, but I do have one question for you. Now, one of the reasons why I think people, and I really want to get to the core of some of my emotions in just the most transparent way that I can, some of the factors on not wanting to outsource are fear-based, right? Fear of having someone else represent the brand, fear of having people whom you don't necessarily directly manage communicating in methods and styles, you know, providing potentially false information. Now, I'm not saying any of these are real, right? But these fears often cause people to stay clammed up, you know, the turtle with the shell on top because
100%.
it doesn't want to go out. Right?
Do you know how many times I've heard my technology is too complicated for you to sell, and how many times I'm like, well, we're not selling your product, we're actually selling the meeting.
So we're selling the meeting. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. So
what do you think I said to your CRO? If I played the recording with your CRO, like conversation was not about CloudTask. It was like, hey man, let's just chat. Like maybe like, I can upload it to you. I recorded it.
Nice.
You know, but yeah, I've heard it all. I hope that my marketing team's hearing this, because we need to make some more collateral around that, right? Like. Because guess what? Like, I am probably more worried than you are about our guys saying the right things and representing our brand, and so are our managers, right? And I'm gonna have to be like, hey, Ruben, man, this guy is not repping your brand the right way. I'm gonna proactively fire him and rehire him, because guess what? It's gonna happen to you too. You know, I can't change human behavior, right?
Right.
I can only say that by specializing in something, by making major investments in coaching and training, that I could potentially do it at a level that makes sense for you to team up with me, right? Not replace what you have, team up with me, right? Hire 5 people internal. If they're doing awesome, we're in one Slack channel, be one team, one meeting. Competition. Why was it? There's internal competition, but there can't be external. I'll tell you, like, your bank account does not know the difference between W-2 money, outsourced money. It doesn't care, right? It's either $1 million or not. It doesn't care. So use the competition. Everybody is a team player, right?
Nice.
That's just how I see it. I'm an early adopter, right? Like I'm the guy with like the first gadget in every category. So like I know that my brain's different, and I have to learn that everyone else doesn't think like that. So I can only hope that my marketing team can educate people, that results can continue. And that's why I say great things about like I had a call the other day, and someone was like, what do you think about this guy who's a direct competitor of mine? And this direct competitor, he's like, out of the 30 direct competitors I know, like this one guy doesn't actually like me. And I was like, I think he's fucking amazing. I think you should hire him and hire me, because if he's profitable for you and I'm profitable, it sounds like a win, you know? The guy was like shocked that he heard of that. But like, you know, I think that for me, I just would love people in our industry. First of all, people always say lead gen, and it's like, you know, what does lead gen really mean? It's such a weird term, right? Because it's like, to me, a lead is the correct name, number, and email address of somebody. MQL is somebody who agreed for information. SQL is somebody who's like, oh, I'm actually interested in your stuff, right? And opportunity is like, hey, I'm hiring now. Great timing. So it's like they all say lead gen, and I'm like, what does that even mean to you, right? Like their terminology's off. And then there was like, lead gen companies have a bad name, right? Like, so I just would love people in our industry to like really separate the quality from the quantity, because it kind of gets looped into one bowl, right? Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. The only people that are separate from that are like the big companies where they're $1 million minimums, you know. It's like sometimes it's too close to tell. You can't separate who's who, right?
Right. Now, final question for you is, this idea of, if we are an American company, we need to have people from this country that not look like us, but sound like us,
Yeah.
right? We don't necessarily. This is I'm giving you an objection, and I can't wait to hear your response. But we are concerned with outsourcing our sales to another country,
Yeah.
because of communication styles and language barriers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when I think about this, I think about our rep that we have this rep that was assigned to us, which we don't really even communicate with them much. But this person from Google and then Facebook also emailed us one point.
Oh,
and said, hey, and those those people they're educated. One of them's from Nigeria, one of them's from India. I'm from India, and so I'd love to get your take on that.
Really easy, a really easy answer. Every company, no matter who you are hires like with their own culture, right? So if you're in San Francisco, your employees can be completely different from the guy in suite number 202, right? It's the same thing in a different country, near shore, far shore, whatever. Do you know how many companies are in Colombia? I lost count. Like Amazon, Black & Decker, every giant company is there, right? Even HubSpot, and like everybody will hear this because like they have an office in Bogota. They were going to hire us because like they just weren't making it work, right? So it's like you are your culture and what you invest in people, in training and coaching. That's what we are, right? We're not a staffing company. I'm not finding somebody for you. I care about their life. I care about their, their mental health, their vacation time. So like company's culture changes. You interview everybody who's about to work for you. And thirdly, I'm in Miami now opening up our US office because we're going to have US based people. Because if you want US based people, sure, we got that, right? I will no longer be in the business of this is all that we have, right? My focus is going to be on the result that you want. And if you have a specific request that the person must be in the US, you got it, right? You might pay a little bit more.
Right.
Maybe the results will be better. Maybe they won't. So the future of our company is going to be international. We already are. We have a team in Manila. I've hired people in South Africa. I do have people in the US. So we're just going to have an office here, and people will have the choice, and they can be blended teams. Like I said before, it's all a math formula, right? It's one big math formula, right? If this is your budget, this is your goal, and we work backwards, and the math formula makes sense, let's work together. Nice. And that's it.
And for the record, I'm a massive believer in working with people overseas, near shore. We have a team in the Philippines actually that helps us with customer support. So it's a small team, but it's actually managed by this woman by the name of Ina. And I've been telling Ina, I said, you got to get into sales because you would be so good because you know our platform so well. And we're going through that process, but I'm a believer in that. And for me, it's like the person on the other end. I don't care what they sound like. I just care if they're educated about what they're selling and what they know, and they have compassion and patience.
I don't know if you're a sci-fi guy and have you watched the show Expanse on Amazon Prime?
No, I haven't. But
it's like one world. It's actually a future where it's like America, the belt, and then Mars, which has been colonized for 100 years. And like for me, like I think it just sounds really weird, but like having 5,000 languages and whatever the number is in all these countries is just strange to me. Like I just see our world as being one world and everybody as being human. And that's just like my mentality. And I think that's kind of what inspires me to travel the world. And some people just don't see the world like that, right? And it might take a lot of time for us to get to that future if we ever do. But that's the world I live in. It's more borderless. It's if you have a good heart, good compassion, and you want to get stuff done, let's do it, right? And that's just me. So, I had, just to let you know, it's like funny, Drift, we did 24/7 support for Drift, and like Drift, they let us go for like some weird political reason. We were doing really well for them. The two guys doing the night shift, one of them is now my CTO basically, and the other one's like my head of sales engineering. We've been moving for 3 years. I was like, thank you for firing us. And it was like, they just didn't look at the talent. They didn't even know who they were, and they didn't realize that they had brilliant people on their team, right? Because there's prejudice against the word outsourcing is negative, right? Different countries you can't be a genius, right? But we all know that's BS. You said you're from India, right? How many billion-dollar companies are there now in India?
You name
How many
it.
amazing doctors are there, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I think the world will change, and I hope it does. And that's just our little part is hopefully we raise our first round so we can just reinvest in our people, and give them opportunities to learn and to grow. And I see a future for our teammates. Like, not to get into it, but we're building a very, very powerful platform, and we want to be like an Uber, for sales, success, and support. The only difference is Uber, you get a driver and drops you off. Here you'll have consistency, right? And I want a future where our SDRs are not SDRs, they're AI trainers. Our CX reps are not CX reps, they're AI trainers, right? So like my give back to everybody who believed in me, and in our company, is that they won't have that stigma of like, I work at a call center, which we're not, right? But there's a stigma to that. I'm just calling, I'm this and that, and knowing that they're going to be part of a billion-dollar technology company that helps CEOs like yourself build better products. Because if somebody can get better results and reinvest in their product, they make the world a better place. A lot of this tech helps us live a better world. Airbnb, we can go get a house on the mountains that we dreamed of for 2 nights, right? So people didn't have to worry so much about building support. You didn't come up with Dub, right? Like when you woke up and you're like, I got this idea, it's amazing, I'm going to help people with videos. Did you also wake up and be like, I am going to have the best sales team, I'm going to have the best support team, the best success team? Or was that a necessary evil to get your product to where it needs to get to?
Yeah, no, we're still thinking about that. At first, no, I totally see where you're going with this. Yeah.
Yeah, they became so like it's so necessary. It's almost as if it was like college was necessary, right? But we know it's not, right? So, having your own sales team is not. Having the performance, the representation, the quality at a high level is. That's really it.
Nice, man. Where can people connect with you?
Everywhere. Facebook, Instagram. I just use my name, Amir Reiter. There's no other Amir Reiters out there. LinkedIn. I'm omnichannel.
Nice, man. And
Yeah.
cloudtask.com is your website. So thank you, Amir, so much for
Yeah.
the time, man. I really appreciate it. This was extremely educational, and congratulations on your success, man.
Likewise, man. I love what you guys are doing. I love the product. I'm a big fan of video. And thank you for having me on. And we'll chat, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys grow. And happy to help any way I can, man. Take care.
Cool, man. Stick around for a sec here if you can.